I got an email from Inc. 5000, and this year, almost in the top 25% of the fastest growing private companies in the U.S.
Brandon Dawson and the Thumbs Up guys, nearly 600 spots on the Inc. 5000, placing them among the top 25% of the fastest growing companies in America. But getting there meant learning some hard lessons along the way.
I represented this guy, and I worked my tail off for him. I thought, man, people will remember me forever. Well, a couple years later, he gets in a really bad wreck, and he needs to hire an attorney again, and he cannot remember my name.
I'm Chris Stryer, founder and CEO of Rankings.io, the award-winning digital marketing agency for personal injury attorneys. This is Personal Injury Mastermind.
And so after that, I got super intentional about.
Today, Brandon breaks down the 10 proven steps that took his firm from forgettable to one of the fastest growing private companies in America. Before we dive in, do me a solid, hit subscribe. All right, let's go.
We actually started off, with our 4 last names, Miller, Dawson, Sigal, and Ward. And we went to the first ad company that we worked with. And we said, man, there's a problem. This is like a lot of names, a mouthful, no one will remember. And they said, just lean into it. And we tried that for about a year. And, no surprises there. It didn't really work.
Step 1, drop your ego, build a brand.
No one could remember NBSW, Miller, Dawson, Sigal, Ward. And so we ended up hiring another marketing company who we still work with today, White Hart. And they had what they call their sticky brands. And I'd be lying if I told you right away we knew it was genius, but we knew it was better than what we had. And over the last, 6-7 years of using it, we've realized what a great brand it is, and actually how much it truly represents what we stand for.
Like the thumbs up, it's like a positive, like good feeling. It's like a winning signal. You said White Hart, so TV, outdoor. How are you using it?
We have to have brand continuity. We can't be Miller, Dawson, Sigal, and Ward and the Thumbs Up guys. I've been pushing, our marketing director has been pushing over the last couple of years to really kind of get rid of Miller, Dawson, Sigal, and Ward and focus on the Thumbs Up guys. So it started with TV, heavy TV, billboard, radio. Obviously, Google has been a pain in the ass with putting Thumbs Up guys, and they'll try to change it. And so we've been fighting that. And then they'll say, well, we need something with the Secretary of State saying this. And I'm like, well, that's not something that's offered here. And we're trying to show we own the brand. And so, you're always kind of, dealing with different battles.
I kind of wanted to lean in. I just had James Helm, Top Dog on, and we were talking about like, how would you invest 100,000? How would you invest $1 million? How would you invest 10 million in today's environment to like get these leads? What would you say? Hey, here's my core stack, like for a firm today.
It's what we did early on. We had a limited budget. You have to dominate one channel.
Step 2, own one channel before expanding.
You cannot spread that out across TV, radio, billboards, and social or PPC, right? If I've got $100,000, I need to be able to dominate. And early on, you can't spend $100,000 on TV in 1 month and then go off and expect that you're ever going to get any calls from that, right? It's just not going to work. So TV, I tell everybody, if you can't spend for 12 months, really 18 months, without expecting any ROI, then it's probably not for you. You have to have that long outlook there. So you've got to go to maybe some paid leads, GMB, PPC. That's really where you get a case in. You can immediately say, all right, it cost me this exact amount. When you're doing TV, radio, billboards, buses, all the kind of branding plays, we can't attribute a case to any specific thing, right? And we'll have people come in and we talk to them and say, how'd you hear about us? And I remember before we were been doing a lot of billboards and buses, they're like, oh, you're on the billboards and the buses. And we're like, not really. But they think they see you everywhere. And they do. And they think they see you on certain places, and maybe you're not even, but it shows you that you just have to keep hitting them over the head and reminding them that you're there. Focus on the things that you can attribute early on and then start to scale and grow that brand.
I think there's so much wisdom in what you just said. I heard, Guy and Conrad, they have a podcast, but Guy was talking about how when you advertise more and the brand's more prevalent, you actually get more referrals too, because you're top of mind for the referrals. Have you seen kind of that impact? So not necessarily just the TV, the billboards, but like you're starting to get more people mention and refer to your firm.
Absolutely. 2 of those are going to be made up of former client or current client, word of mouth, those sort of things every single month. And that certainly is a huge testament to our former clients and current clients being reminded that we are still their attorneys, right?
Step 3, remarket to every lead.
Years ago, I represented this guy, and man, I took his case all the way right up to trial, and we settled it. And I think the case might have settled for like 20 grand. It was, there had a lot of warts on it. And I worked, my tail off for him. And I thought, man, he and I have a great relationship. He will remember me forever. Well, a couple of years later, he gets in a really bad wreck and he needs to hire an attorney again. And he cannot remember my name. And he sees a billboard, and it's my old firm that I started off with. And he almost calls them, and he talks to his mom, and his mom says, why don't you see if you can find an email from him? Thank the Lord. It was some old email, and he found it, and we signed it up and, settled that case for $250,000. And back then that was a huge, huge case for us. And I just wonder how many of those actually happened where they never made it back to us. Even if you do the best job and you think you're the most amazing attorney and they're never going to forget you, if you're not remarketing to them, they will forget you. After that, I got super intentional about, marketing to our current clients, not only through traditional means, but, keeping them in text campaigns, email campaigns, mailers, even just trying to get more involved in the community. Anything you can do just to remind those people, hey, we're still out here, we're still doing it. But certainly TV, radio, billboard, all that helps with the reminder out there too.
We got to touch on the 1,200 reviews. I mean, very rare. Do you get do I see firms that have above 1,000? I mean, it's very rare.
Started with, that mission and vision to deliver that 5-star client experience. And that was through exceptional client communication, access to high quality medical care, and then just absolute badass, lawyering. And number one to me was exceptional client communication. They don't know if you're a great attorney or not, but what they do know is, did my attorney talk to me? Do they call me? Do they care about me?
Step 4, make reviews your number one referral engine.
And so that to me was the number one touch point, was let's do that right on the front end. And then if we treat our team members great and really pour into them, then that's going to trickle down to our clients. Like anybody, we're out there, we're trying to encourage our team to, get Google reviews. We'll do, sessions on how to ask. I think that a lot of people get it wrong. They only ask at the end of the case. I think you can ask at any point in time. If you had a great experience, we certainly incentivize our team where people kind of get their name in the hat throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, we'll pick a couple names out of there, and then we'll send them on a 5 days, all expenses paid, vacation, PTO, and everything. And so, that motivates as well. But that also goes back to culture, right?
Step 5, and this one is tied directly to step 4, put culture first.
We really started with a culture first initiative. And I think that trickle down has been a huge part of that. I mean, we have people over here that are recruiting their friends and that are at other firms saying, hey, come over here. It's awesome. I think that is really kind of the secret sauce. We want people to work hard and to play hard. And so again, I think there's just a combination of all those things that really do, go back to driving those. And those, they're real reviews.
It shows the referrals, the internal referrals, just the culture from top to bottom. And that's amazing. So congrats on that for sure. Let's talk about the intake side, the sales side. What's your intake look like from like a staffing perspective? Like, how do you think about intake?
My biggest baby is intake. Our intake manager, she's just an absolute A player. And we would not be where we are without her. She's actually our first hire back in 2020. And so, huge shout out to Haley for putting up with me. You got to be dialed in there. I think we all know that. People listen to this podcast, they know that you've got to know your want rate, how many cases are you signing up by each vertical, right? And really making sure that you're closing, knowing that, hey, maybe I'm really good at closing a certain type of client, and Chris, you might be a lot better at closing this other client, and working as a team there. From an individual perspective, we use Litify, can see everybody's conversion rate. What's the team's conversion rate? Is anybody not doing well?
Step 6, set goals that scare you and measure your progress.
We're using AI to audit calls, and we actually do paper audits as well. They have to hit certain phrases, certain reassurances when they're talking to people. Haley's going through listening to calls, having them listen to calls, grade each other, doing training calls. Every week they're doing a huddle. Hey, how can we improve? What did we miss? Those are all the things. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day, and he's got a $30+ million law firm. He's like, man, I wasn't tracking my net new. It's your signed cases less the cases that you close with a fee and you got rid of without a fee or for whatever reason. And knowing, are you actually gaining each month, or are you actually losing cases each month? And I would say also track that by case type, right? Are you signing a bunch of auto cases, or you sign a bunch of comp cases, whatever that vertical is, make sure you know which one. And the reason I say that is because it helps with that hiring, right? Having the right amount of people on the bench. If you're net newing 20, 30, 40, 50 cases a month, well, you need to be hiring like crazy, right? If you're net newing negative, you got some problems, right? Like that's a, recession warning indicator. So I always look at that. I don't look at it month to month in React, but, quarter to quarter, year to year, look at that and kind of know what's going on with your firm. I think it's a really good way to kind of find some holes in there. And that's why, last year we had, I think it was a 96.4 conversion percentage of our wanted cases. Wanted? Yeah.
Whoa, that's super high. That's incredible.
And
I've never heard it that high, honestly. I've most try to hit that 90 percentile or 92. So 96.5 is insane.
Yeah. Last year, they absolutely killed it. And, I'm over there going, hey, like if it's a want, even if for some reason you couldn't really track them down, that's still a want, right? We want to be honest and it's like playing golf. I'm not a big golfer, but sometimes you duff a couple off the tee and you go, I'll redo that one. Certain ones, like y'all did everything you could and know that like not every case, is going to be converted. But I've been so proud of that team and Haley. Like I said, dealing with me texting, being like, hey, it's Saturday at 9 a.m. and what's going on with this case?
You got the prime time hours, I guess those are like your noon to 5 typically. I know there's some seasonality there too. But like, how are you? You love it, right? Yeah. So it's the game for you. So you're already on the leads too. But how are you guys handling, say, evenings or weekends, kind of some of those off hours?
Yes. You're exactly right. There's certainly peak hours, right? And intake is been a tougher position to continually staff. I think you get a lot of burnout there. And we want to have a bunch of A players, so you can't like let anybody slide in there. We've certainly tried to make sure that we incentivize them with pay and all that, at a higher level because they're converting at a higher level. So it's constantly trying to tweak that to say, all right, well, Mondays are busier than Fridays, and 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. is actually busier than 10 a to 12 p. maybe, right? Looking at those stats to figure out when can we get people in here, and of course we have rollover coverage. So there's no call that's going to voicemail. You can't have unanswered calls. I think we all know that at this point in time.
The other thing too that I hear just from your explanation of intake is like you have incredibly high standards. And I've heard Hormozy talk about this. The people with the highest standards should lead. It's because like, no, our standards for our wanted rate is not 92%. It's whatever the target was, 95 or 96, and you got it because you had like below that wasn't acceptable.
Yeah. It's always kind of raising that bar, right? And you do have to recognize that you can push it too far, right? And so there's this fine line of like pushing just enough, and then also saying, hey, look, I'd rather say that the target this year is 97, and if we got to 96.5, that's better than saying it's 92 and we got to 93, right? And so one's a loss, one's a win technically, but in reality, we'd much rather take the 96. So we need to, make sure that the team knows, hey, this is exceptional. With the intake team, we look on a quarterly basis, and they'll have, if they meet their goals, they'll do spa days, dinners. I really want them to kind of treat themselves. If you give them money, a lot of times people won't spend it on themselves, and I think they've really enjoyed that.
I think that's going to be my top takeaway just for myself, because I agree with you. People like want to share the experiences of what they happen, not the bonus check. Like they're not going to tell their friends about the $100 bonus, but they will tell them that my boss sent me to, a spa.
Yeah. Yeah, got a full massage, nails done, facial, all that. Like, there's not many firms doing that. But yeah, I think the second or third year in a row that we've won Best Places to Work. And that's a huge testament to our HR and, really trying to focus in on what is it that our team wants. We have a younger workforce and they love Gym Pass. I think that costs us like $1,000 or $2,000 a month. There's a lot of ways you can do stuff for not a lot of money, but with a lot of intentionality. And I think that's really been one of the things that we've always tried to do is just be super intentional and show up and listen.
Step 7, hire to fill your weak spots.
There's some things that we absolutely hate to do. And you know what we do? We avoid them and we put them off to the side. They never get done. And then this from bootstrapping your own business. Early on, you have to do all the crappy things. Right. You got to take out the trash. You got to write every SEO content blog. And it might be things that you're good at, but you don't love. Hire those weaknesses as fast as you can and free yourself up to do the things that you love. And I think those are some things that will really, really propel your business.
So talk to me about the team. Talk to me about like finding great talent? How do you approach that side?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely the best way to find talent is referrals in-house. So, we paid some headhunters a time or two, and that's expensive. And so I would rather pay somebody in-house, maybe give them a bonus to say, hey, if you recommend somebody that you love and you want them over here, those have been our best hires. We're happy to pay $1,000, $2,000, dollars, if they're here for a year or 6 months, that sort of stuff. So those have been the best hires we've had.
Step 8, always be hiring.
You're always looking, depending on your size. And that's something that Kyle is always doing. We're always trying to keep somebody in the pipeline. For the longest time, and it's in our business, this cash flow is the biggest issue, right? It's the old revenues for vanity, profits for sanity, and cash flow is king. And it's easy to sit here and say, well, I can't afford this person. And Bill Biggs, he was like, Brandy, you always need to have somebody on the bench, and whatever position that's in, because you never know when somebody, is going to leave. Any team, they're not running 11v11 in the football team. They have backups to backups. And you never know when somebody's going to get hurt. You never know when somebody's going to, have to take a leave of absence. So that hurts a lot more when somebody leaves and you don't have any bandwidth to take on those cases. It's not good for your clients. It's not good for your team. And so we've really tried to be intentional about having, 1 or 2 people on the bench, and we're slowly bringing them along. And is that more of a bleed on cash flow? Sure. But we're bringing them up better with those younger attorneys. We're able to train them so they're not getting kind of just thrown right into the deep end. Same thing on the case manager, paralegal side. You never know when great talent's going to come across you. So soak it up when you can.
I think that's a great piece of advice. And then the immersion of the less experience, like in how you're nurturing that development. I went through that same thing with the recruiting side. It's like you hit these like inflection points where you need a lot more bodies, and maybe even if you have a bench, because we've been trying to be intentional about that. And I went through a round and it was like, geez, I just paid a full salary for a recruiter if I had it in-house on like 3 or 4 hires. And I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah. That's a rough check to write.
That pain happened, and now I've solved it. It's like just one of those things that aren't talked about a lot.
Yep.
Have you thought about the capital side? I guess Esquire Bank is probably the leader there. They legit have a monopoly on the financing side. Have you thought about using any of that, like to maybe pace it up? Because now you got the model, you got the brand, anything on that side?
We use Advocate Capital just for case costs. To realize I'm loaning out, $1 million in, non-interest bearing case costs that I may or may not get back. But that's been a great way for us to free up, almost an extra 6 figures every month in cash flow. But in terms of growth, we haven't leveraged at all. We have not borrowed any money. We've said, all right, if we're going into a new market, so we went into Colombia, different DMA, and we said, all right, do we have enough money to basically just eat, a couple $100,000 every month? And we said, yeah, we can do that, right? Go back to that TV conversation earlier. You've got to be in it for 12, 18 months to see any ROI. My hope is that Colombia will start to be able to feed itself. And then we have, 2 revenue producing markets. And then we can kind of say, all right, well, if Charleston is what we're kind of living off of, Columbia market to then be our cash cow to go fund another market. If we can avoid having to go borrow a bunch of money, then, self-finance. But there's certainly a great case to make. I mean, if you know your numbers, I've certainly said that as well. Like, man, if we can borrow for X and we can get an ROI of, 20X, like, all right, well, that starts to make sense. And this year, the last probably year, we've really tried to scale up internally, with the CFO, a controller, and, doing some other stuff there to really look at those sort of pieces. Cause I like to think I'm pretty smart, but I want to be surrounded by much, much smarter people. And, I've been really blessed to hire some tremendous people around me that can help us scale up.
I'm bootstrapped too. And I think that's the way to go. And you also respect the dollar too. Talk to me about the attorney side, the legal side to kind of develop that piece of the coin before.
Yeah. So we've always had a core value of, always be growing was, it's kind of like the ABG is what I called it. Always be growing. And what that meant was, man, if you want to go to any seminar, if you can say, hey, this is going to make me a better attorney, we're going to send you. We just had a bunch of people out in San Francisco, AAJ, we're going to send a bunch of people to, Trial Lawyers Academy. There's all sorts of things we're always like sending people to. That's one thing you can do to grow your team. But also hiring great talent in-house to help train. So we have pods, and we have mentors inside of there. So, every attorney has a mentor that they're going to go to. They're going to talk about their cases.
Step 9, match the case to the right closer.
Every case is going to get ranked, right? As soon as it comes in the door, in Chad Dudley, it's preached this for years. You rank it as a B under the Pareto analysis. You figure out where that's supposed to go, and it can only get moved down with supervisor approval. You can always move it up. Anything in that A bucket is going to get round tabled. We've gotten to a point where we're large enough where, we have our A minuses, our A pluses, and our stars. The A minuses kind of have a separate, meeting because it can get a bit tedious when you're having, hundreds of cases trying to get talked about. Those big cases we're focus grouping our top cases. Last week, we were focus grouping one of our star cases, and it's amazing what you find out in those settings. We haven't gotten back all the data, but just talking to the people that were there in person, it's just eye-opening to figure out, taking a fact and flipping it just a little bit this way or a little bit that way, how much that meant to some people. And, those are cases where you really make your hay. You could say, all right, well, that's great. We got $5 million for that case. So what if it's a $25 million case?
Right.
You okay giving up a $20 million case? Like, no, absolutely not. And so you really, really have to get dialed on those, top 1% of your cases and make sure that you're maximizing value there. Because I think that's really what separates, the best from kind of everybody else. You really have to make sure that you're not settling anything early, that you're going the extra mile and putting your best cases in the best attorney's hands.
Step 10, lead with a vivid vision.
The other thing that I think is huge is doing a vivid vision. Cameron Harold's book, Vivid Vision, and then work backwards, right? If you want to be a $30 million law firm, well, what does that look like? Does that mean you need, 80 people, and how many attorneys, and what's your staff makeup? How many cases you need to be signing? And then work backwards and go, all right, where am I today? And how do I get there tomorrow? It's no different than when we're, driving from here to Columbia. I put it in the GPS. I know where I'm going. I know the turns I have to make. Make sure that you have a roadmap for where you're going. Don't just say, oh, I want to be a $30 million law firm. Like, that's all well and good, but like, what does that look like? How are you going to get there?
Couldn't agree more. I think that's incredible. And then that is the top 1%, like a type of mindset too. Brandon, this has been amazing. I got one final question for the audience that has questions about the pod, wants to connect with you, wants to refer you a case, what have it. How can they get in touch with you?
Shoot me an email. It's just my last name, Dawson @mdswlegal.com. You can visit inpain.com. It's probably the easiest way. You can track me down there. Give me a call, 843-885-8000.
Brandon Dawson and the Thumbs Up Guys exploded, leading them securely in position as the fastest growing firm in South Carolina. You've got the 10 steps. Now it's your turn to put them to work. If you got value today, hit subscribe. Catch you next time.